But in studio, his nickname was Nick the Kick back in the day. Nick Lowery. And I'm just going to throw something weird at you, Tiki. Before we say hi, who does he look like? Be honest. Let's get a close-up of Nick.
I don't know. You tell me.
This is going to sound crazy.
Okay.
Looks a little bit like George Clooney. Don't you see it?
No.
George Clooney's a lot better looking than I am.
I know he is, but
Have you ever heard
but
that?
you look a little
He's
bit
just,
like
he's just
George
saying
Clooney.
that because he paid you a compliment.
He's trying. This is right. Beware when they have the undeserved compliment that some other crap is coming around.
No,
the other
there's no
side.
crap.
He's gonna go like this.
Yeah,
Nick,
exactly.
all I knew you had that little cheesy mustache and
Porn
that little
star, it
one
was
bar
not little.
helmet,
It did actually store cheese.
Yeah.
You know, later in the day, I just pick out a couple pieces of,
Nice.
you know, my favorite Swiss cheese.
When you got a little hungry. Well, you had a great career. 18 years, a couple of years with my Jets as well. We were talking about that before we
Character
came on
building
in.
years.
Yeah,
With Richie
Rich
Cote.
Cote.
If we only kept, I mean, think about it now. Pete
Yeah.
Carroll. If we kept Pete Carroll for one more year, might have been.
Well,
might
listen,
still be there.
but if Pete Carroll didn't go 0-5 in December, Pete
There you
Carroll
go.
would have been brought back.
And he wasn't Pete Carroll. That's Pete Carroll now.
Yeah,
then.
but also, don't you think a coach needs 2 years?
Of
I mean, I think
course.
there were a couple
That's a
guys
good
on the
point.
team. I won't mention them, but let's just say that they weren't happy. They weren't happy with the Jets organization. They weren't happy. And you have to, as that head coach, working with a general manager who is dying of cancer, Dick Steinberg, so that you have to be able to get those people out and bring in the people that create what Theo Epstein talks about it, which is that chemistry, which he now says is just as important as Moneyball. It's who are the guys under adversity that bring the team closer together. And look what the Cubs did, right? When they could have fallen
Great
apart
reference.
in that,
Look at
in
you
that game.
talking about a little baseball.
Yeah, he knows
you
his
played
sports.
baseball
I
in
played
college, by
baseball
the way.
at Dartmouth College, baby.
I love it. Interesting guy already.
Nick walked in. I never, we obviously hadn't seen each other in years, and I forgot how big you are.
Yeah, he is a big
You're
guy.
like,
I'm big and burly.
that was weird, Nick.
Yeah,
that was weird.
that was kinda weird.
98% of our audience is
Big
men.
and-
That was a little uncomfortable.
All right. Let's move on.
But are you? What are you? 6'4"?
Yeah.
So
most
boy,
kickers, I feel like a little.
especially in his day.
But you see, the thing is,
Now
the
they're
kicker's
pretty
walking
big.
off the field with the tackles next to him, and the tackles are all like 6'8", 320.
Yeah.
So people would always think I was about 5'11".
Why didn't you play like tight end or
Because I
exact-
would have been broken in half, and in one quarter I would have been, on a gurney somewhere.
So you were afraid. You were afraid of the hits, and which
I
leads
wasn't afraid. My body couldn't handle it. But you know what? When I got to 220 at the end of my career, I really liked the hit. So it was interesting. I was 190,
so you were one of those. You were
187.
one of those kickers that ran down and wanted to
Like John Hall.
No.
throw elbows.
No, but it didn't hurt so much. Elvis Patterson from the Raiders once just clean clocked me, but I bounced right up and like, where is he?
Yeah.
But
Nick,
I was not built for
to
it.
get serious here, did you ever have any concussions doing any of those things?
I had one in high school. A guy from Woodbury Forest, linebacker, hit me, but I don't remember anything, and that may be why I can't remember. But and when I was 8 years old, Tiki, I had a van drive over the pile of leaves I was hiding in because me and my buddy Steve were hiding. We were pretending we were secret agents, and the van backed over my head. I had tire tracks up my shoulder, neck, and head.
What?
So that's why people go, that's why it's so weird.
Really? Wait, and you were face down, and the tire
I
went
was
over
like
the
this,
back
yeah.
of your, or the
Yep.
side.
And before all 300 and whatever games of my career, I'd have a knot right here, which is, that's not a bad thing compared to what
I was going to say, a
squashed
knot,
hit
you're
might have.
lucky. I mean, knots
Yeah.
like a pimples on an elephant's
tell you.
behind compared to
Yeah.
what could have happened
Yeah.
to you. Good God,
That's
terrifying.
it's fortunate that you survived that because that's you tell your kids don't play in leaves. 'cause you never
and
know.
back then they took me to the hospital, and 2 hours later I'm going home, everything's fine. Today they would have done a brain scan, they
Yeah.
would have looked at damage, and they would have found that I was, not going to live probably.
Yeah.
but-
Now, speaking of brain scans, now you've been doing a lot of work with with CTE with your company, Kannalife Sciences, and when you sat down, you said there's been a breakthrough
Yes.
in the CTE
Let's talk about it.
research. So let's talk about it. Tell us what's
when
going
the
on here.
numbers come out, and there are 110 of 111 players, even though they were dead still, and it's not a random sample by statistical purposes, that is very sobering. 48 of 53 college players, even high school players. So it's been a lot of bad news. And what Dr. Ann McGee, the same author with my buddy Chris Nowitzki at Harvard, who's come over to BU, is saying there may be a biomarker now that they've found in BIBA, which means that we can predict and identify potentially somebody while they're still living that they have the signs and symptoms of CTE and treat them that much faster.
So explain what a biomarker is.
Well, biomarker is something in the blood, could be in the plasma, something that identifies the levels are much higher, and that's what she talks about. But what we found is hemp, which is like bamboo versus marijuana. I always have to say this. Very low THC. In fact, we have a pure non-THC product. hemp-based CBDs are incredibly effective. We have 3 major studies recently with the Salk Institute, with UCLA Torrance, and with Stanford, all very highly respected, that show that we can actually repair and rebuild neurons in the brain. And what we need now is for the NFL, instead of researching helmets, $60 million for helmets and $40 million for other things, we need to switch that around and have an extra $20 million to research with human beings these things. And then I predict, if we move quickly, absolutely as confident as I can be, that we're going to have essentially a daily vitamin that anybody, because it's a life issue too. I bet you hit your head outside of football.
Of course, everybody does.
That would explain why you're the way you are, of course. So I don't know about Tierney. I'm not sure. It might have been multiple things for him. For what
me forget. You don't even want to probe into my mind, but go ahead.
But seriously, what it does is UCLA found that people in very serious car accidents, UCLA Torrance found 446 of them, those that were that had THC or cannabinoids in their system, were 5 times less likely to die from a traumatic brain injury. So when you combine that with that mobile virtual player robotic tackling dummy, which ends teammate-on-teammate tackling, which the Ivy League's done, you can cut right away, just from that, you can cut concussions 60%, injuries 80%, and then throw in this, not even thinking about better helmets. And we've got football where at least there's a manageable level of concussions, maybe even 2/3 less than we had before.
Nick, first, that's incredible. That's a mountain of incredible information right there. That's very encouraging. I love hearing that. Nick Lowery with us in studio, Dartmouth educated, obviously pursuing this with incredible vigor and apparently some success. This is going to seem like a very rudimentary question here, but I'm sure some people in our audience might be thinking the same thing. Everything about the brain has been positioned as that it's irreversible. So can you explain in functional terms how you can actually fix
what we want to do with Kannalife Sciences, which we've been doing a lot of research with Dr. William Kenny at Temple University. But what we want to do is take that Salk study. What we thought was that other cells created inflammation coming from the hit. What we did not realize from this study with Dr. David Schubert at Salk is that actually it looks like the neurons, when they're fed CBDs, literally there's a switch that goes on that tells that neuron to rebuild itself. And the old thing with both Alzheimer's and CTE, which are very similar, is the things called A betas or amyloid betas. These are clumpings of the cell, which is what destroys the functioning in every sense. Your ability to think clearly, to make decisions, take in information, to manage your emotions, all those things go out the window. This is something that helps unscramble those A betas in a way that restores functioning at a very meaningful level. And if the commissioner's watching, we want to work with the NFL because this does work and has nothing to do with psychotropic CBDs.
Yeah, those are the ones that get you high. Those are the ones that
those are the ones that you're smoking.
Nick, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
By the way, do you have some of those?
There is hope for Tierney, maybe for Tiki as well.
Tiki
I
wants
get
to
to
smoke
crank
some.
out my New York accent. Long Island, it's not perfect, okay? It's been a while, but I learned because we lost 28 of 32 games my last couple years with the Jets. I had to learn something.
I watched every one of those games. 1-15 and 3-13.
Richie Kotite, wherever you are.
Thank you.
I know. I know.
I love you, but really.
But it's this and that. Nobody cares nationally about Rich Kotite.
No.
They care more about what we're talking about the mind.
What is the hurdle of getting into the NFL?
What's the hurdle?
What's the hurdle? How come they're not involved?
It's just politics where we go past politics to compassion and to practical application. In other words, if I'm an investor and I'm an owner, and I see that I don't think in research, I know that this is going to lead to an outcome that will preserve the sport. As stewards of the game, we get in our culture, not just with NFL players, but with kids that are playing any number of sports. Dr. Bennett Amalu, I was on MSNBC actually a month ago talking about this. It's a cellular helmet. And the more that we get, all it is, just like every major scientific breakthrough, whether it's Galileo, oh my gosh, everything revolves around the sun. When we begin to change our paradigms, it's hard at first. And this will gradually feed off itself with more and more research that proves, with truly scientific double-blind studies, the kind that all medicine is based on, that it actually works. And I'm telling you, Mr. Commissioner, let's do it soon, because why do we always wait 20 years in the United States?
Yeah,
let's do it now.
How did you get into this, Nick? I mean, obviously you finished your 18-year career, your kicker. Who knows what kickers do when they retire? But now here you are.
Now they don't have to do anything but play catch and make a lot of money.
I was a legislative aide in the United States Senate before I made it in the NFL for Senator Chafee, Rhode Island Senator, and then I worked in the White House in the Drug Abuse Policy Office, and then I went to Harvard in 2000 to the Kennedy School, and we studied leadership. And leadership is like Wayne Gretzky, skating to where the puck's going to be. And this is where medicine's going to be. This is, we love football. Football's the best game in America, teaches the best lessons, but it's not going to be around in its current form if we don't just face it, just like any good, responsible leader does, and say, okay, all right, we learn what we can, and then we make good, proactive decisions.
That's
we
the
don't
key word right
react. I'm just tired of seeing reactive leadership.
Yeah.
Wow. This might be the most interesting interview we've ever had. I mean, we're not saying a whole lot. You're doing most of the talking, which is a flip,
hard
which is fine. Which I mean,
you know
listen,
what? I'm going to shave my head, and we could be one big happy family. Bald heads everywhere. No,
I don't know if you keep breaking it, that second personality. We're not going to. I don't know. Maybe you had too many concussions. Everything you just said is going to be rendered meaningless, and the commissioner's not going to listen to you. Listen, we've had so many people. We've had Dr. Amalu, and I'll be honest with you, Nick. A lot of the stuff, and I was living in San Francisco. You mentioned some of the research out there. About 6 years ago, they came out with a mouth guard with some sort of sensors that could actually measure head trauma, whatever. I think that the instincts are right. We obviously need to pursue this, but you're right. There's been this reticence to tackle it, full throttle. Yeah. It's like we just keep kicking it down the road. It's going to fix itself.
You know what?
It's not going to fix itself.
Let me give you some
Football's
good news.
going to be gone. Yeah, I mean, they got to do this.
Let me give you some good news. 16 of the 32 teams now have those virtual player robotic dummies. Once we get that into all the league.
But why wouldn't every team have it?
I know, and that's the thing. I think the NFL should require that. That's 60%, 59% reduction in not only concussions, but 80% in injuries. If you're a coach,
you're talking
and
about
instead
like
of 3 guys a week, right?
And,
2 or
and
3
ligaments
guys
and knees and everything. Yeah.
What happens if every week you go from 3 guys that you can't play the next week and got to teach them the backup?
Yeah.
To only having 0 or 1. That's what happened in the Ivy League. That's why the Ivy League's doing it right now. And actually, if you look at Dartmouth's tackling practices, they're actually it's like an NFL thing, because you can't hurt yourself. So the reps go up 2 and 3 and 4 times, and the players get better. Why? Because just
muscle
like any
memory.
learning thing, muscle memory, you're doing it right, and that's the future of the game.
Yeah, Nick,
Nick Lowery with us here on Tiki and Tierney. Good job, Nick.
How do you convince, because people hear cannabinoids,
right?
And it scares them.
Yep.
Parents, it scares them. And DT and I have talked about
misinformation.
This many times. And it is a lot of misinformation.
80 years of misinformation.
How do you clean up? Of course it is. It got overregulated with steroids.
Not only that. What happened was a guy named William Randolph Hearst owned 23 newspapers, and this was actually a Fox interview with Carol Alt last year. And which
I met her at a golf course
with
once.
an expert on CBDs. And in 1937, he was able to convince Congress, well, let's see now, I've got 23 newspapers and I've got millions of acres of trees. Trees only produce 1/4 of the paper that hemp does. Our Constitution was written on hemp. There are 500 commercial uses for hemp. And he worked with Monsanto's CEO and got it outlawed. Right in that era of the end of one prohibition, he created another. We're now at the end of the prohibition of cannabis, not marijuana, but hemp. Low THC, and actually in 2003, 2004, getting technical, people, but just so you know, against the DEA, the Ninth Circuit judge said hemp is legal if it's produced outside the United States. It's actually less than 0.3%. So normal THC is like 10% to 15%. So that's 1/50th. And
actually, that might be on the low end. I've read articles where some today it's up to like 18, 19, 20%.
So it's about 1/50th, 1/60th. And that's legal if it's produced outside the United States and it's just a stem, stock, and seed. So we have an opportunity now. It's legal right now in all 50 states, according to the Ninth Circuit, 3rd and 4th. Anybody that hears differently, that's the law.
But the question is, how do you clean up that conversation?
You clean up by having Tiki Barber and his wingman talk about it.
Can you at least learn my name, man? You've been sitting in my studio for the last 15 minutes. You don't even know my name.
Brandon Tierney.
What if I called you Ali Haji Sheik? Would you like that? He used to kick for the Giants just because you kicked for the Giants. Is that okay?
Now, so that would be fine.
I'm just kidding, Nick. I don't have that big of an ego.
Mr. Tierney. Sorry, buddy.
Oh, man.
Are you over it yet?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
All right,
Listen,
all right.
I'm good. You guys just two NFL players just rapping. I'm just the
let's
the
talk about
nobody.
baseball. Maybe
Monkey
we'll
in the
feel
middle,
better.
throwing the ball over my head. Go ahead.
Let's talk about Judge, 50 home runs. Rookie, 6'9", 400 pounds.
Could you have made it? How far did you make it in baseball, by the way? Did you just
If
stop
I had a different coach in baseball, I would have played pro baseball.
Oh, we all say that. But what do you mean if we had a different coach? Could you throw 90 or what would you throw?
I walked 80. I ran about 8. I ran 86. I pitched 86. But I walked less than 1 per game.
Wait, were you a lefty or a righty?
Righty.
You couldn't make it if you threw 86. I don't care if God was coaching. You hit 86 on the guns, you're a righty, you got no chance.
I was
you picked the right sport.
I was sidearm, and I was okay. But I would not have been as good as
you did Kent Colvey. You went a little underarm.
I did.
Okay, that's different. I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah,
we'll give you a chance then. Well, you didn't say that.
See, I'm trying to take it your way, and then you jump right back at me.
And by the way, Nick, the commissioner will see this because this will be on social media. It's obviously on TV. What you said was incredibly important and poignant. Really good stuff, man. We'll get you back at some point.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Good
Nick
luck,
Lowery,
Nick.
everybody. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for coming up.
I love you guys.
You got it. There he is. Interesting cat, huh? You didn't think we were getting this from Nick Lowery? Honestly, I heard Nick Lowery. I thought we just. I shouldn't even say this. I thought we were getting some boring old kicker who was like, looked like he was 75. That's what I thought we were getting. Got the exact 147.
I go the other way. Seriously, instead of going, I'm really 39, I go, for 147, I look awesome.
You do. And more importantly, your message is very important. Great job.
Kannalife Sciences, baby. Check it out.
We'll get you. All right, Nick Lowery, former kicker.